Welcome back to another Real Talk with Realtors about real things, real stuff, and whatever else we feel like talking about. And today we feel like talking about what questions do realtors get asked at a cocktail party? Mm-hmm. Or in our case, we're filming this shortly after the Super Bowl, so it was at Super Bowl parties.
But I get this asked it all the time, everywhere I go. So, the first question is, how's the market?
How's the market? What do we say to that?
Well, it depends how the market is.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
we always have an answer.
Pretty much
so that's
just
good.
Tell the truth. But right now I say, gosh, the market's really picking up. We're definitely feeling it. But you got kind of like an interesting question at the party you were just at.
Yeah.
Since you don't really go to very many parties.
We don't go to, I had to literally drag my butt over there, but I did it. It was the middle of the day, so that's helpful too. So this person, instead of saying, how's the market? They looked at me and said, so is the market dead? I was like, no, not at all. I was like surprised that he asked me that because it just goes to show what realtors see versus what consumers see or hear about. So in retrospect, I wish I would have asked like why he thought that or what he was listening to.
Well, of course he thinks that. The rates have gone up and the market is that.
But the rates went back down a little bit.
A little bit.
I don't know.
I mean, I can see
just
why somebody
him.
would maybe assume that also because of what the media portrays when they say that we've had the biggest increase in rates in so much time, or I don't even know what all the stats are. Our rates have doubled, right? The headlines are pretty crazy, so it scares people.
Right.
But I think, and I do think the market has shifted in 2023 for sure. I mean, we were down 30%, but we were like where we need it to be. And that's what I usually say. I just say, it's, no, it's not dead.
Yeah.
It's not dead, but it's adjusted for sure. I mean, it's definitely, and part of that problem is because of the shortage of inventory and the rates combined.
So. And I don't know if there is ever a time in the last year that I would have said yes to that question. The market's dead. I mean, it slowed down for sure. And like you said, what needed to happen happened, but there was never a time where I didn't have an escrow. I didn't have something going on. And I feel like a lot of agents always kind of had something going on. It was just a lot less than the last couple of years that we got used to.
Yeah. The ironic thing is how many realtors there are out there, given the fact that the market has slowed down, but yet realtors don't seem to think so. So
no, and
they all just keep getting in the business
because of social media. Yeah. They're wearing rose-colored goggles until they're about a year or two in.
Does that mean they got to drink rosé all day?
Probably, especially if you're on the Lappins team.
Yay. Just kidding.
Okay. Another thing that we get is comments and ideas in general that people have about the market.
True.
Like what they think is their perspective of what's going on, which is welcomed. Like I want to know what the consumer
what's
thinks.
the commonest thing that they say?
The bubble's gonna burst.
This is gonna burst. The market's gonna burst. We're in a bubble. Yeah. We've been in a lot of bubbles for a long time.
And nothing's ever happened except for 2008.
Right.
So, I mean, our generations, like anyone who was alive during that time or had parents that went through that, it's kind of just tainted all around. Yeah. Had that never happened, then that word probably would have never been coined. And like, we wouldn't have that at the forefront of our mind when we're going through just like a harder market.
Right. Well, I think too, you hear people say that the market's going to crash and that the prices are going to drop. And we did another episode on what Jerome Powell, the Federal Chair Commission, had to say, and he does not seem to think so. And I think that dude knows his stuff, right?
Yeah, so a little
bit. It shocks me how many times I have heard that we're going to see a flood of foreclosures when that we've said time and time again on this podcast, and you've heard on a lot of other podcasts and things, that it's not going to happen because of the amount of equity that everybody has. Yep. So I think it's our jobs as realtors to really try to educate people. I mean, we don't want to sound all educate, but just bring up those facts.
Yeah.
And the facts are that 40% of Americans that own a home own them free and clear. And or have a ton of equity. So it's highly unlikely that we're going to see a flood of foreclosures or big price drops.
Yeah. And a lot of times when people say, I think that there's going to be a burst, my response is, well, we don't have any inventory, which is nothing new to people. Like the general public knows we don't have enough housing supply. I would say everyone I've talked to is kind of like, yes, we agree with that. So if there's just a basic law of supply and demand. And once you say that, they're like, okay, yeah, like that's kind of true. And, you know, the statistic is builders would have to be building a certain amount of homes for the next 10 years to even catch up to the amount of supply that we have, because the last 10 years they've been so slow because of 2008. So it's been a trickle effect.
Yes.
There was a
big slowdown in building, and that is part of the reason why we do have that.
And then a lot of the homes that are being built, I mean, I will say in Chico specifically, we do have 2 D.R. Horton developments that I would say are affordable for our area. And, you know, they come with some nice amenities and things, but nationwide, a lot of what's being built are a step above a first-time home buyer price point or affordability. So that's another issue is, yes, builders are bringing some supply into the market, but it's not the supply that like largely we need.
Right.
So that's a whole nother issue.
Well, yeah, and affordability that question is, it's just depends on what you think is affordable and what you think what is not affordable. What are some of the other things that people say? I mean, sometimes people ask about seasonality, like, oh, is it really busy right now? And somebody asked me, oh, is December a busy month? No. So, you know, oh, things are really slow right now, huh? Yeah, they are, because it's Christmas. I mean, as soon as you hit November, typically things slow down. The benefit, I guess, to being on the market or in the market in that time is you have less competition on both sides, whether you're a buyer or a seller. You're going to have a little less competition if you're a seller, which really, I guess we don't really have a lot of competition with that anyways. Or as a buyer, you're going to have fewer people bidding on properties in that time. But typically not a great time to put your home on the market.
Right.
It's a little bit slower, or you know, okay to be looking in that time. But again, you don't have a lot to choose from. So what other questions do you get at parties?
That's all I've gotten recently. I mean, there was a time where people were like, do you think the market's going to go? Like they ask you what you think prices are going to do or what our rate's going to do and things like that. But I kind of wish I would have talked to the people at the Super Bowl party I'm thinking of about prices, because I would have been interested to hear what their take on that is. Yeah. But generally, you know, we're seeing prices go up and we're predicting prices to go up nationwide this year. Those are the questions that I've been getting lately. So anything from your end?
No, I think hits the nail on the head. People ask about the housing market, what it's doing, have rates affected, and gosh, you guys just must be so slow. And it needed to adjust a little bit. And I have a feeling it's going to adjust the other direction now in the next couple of years, but not too crazy. It's nice to have it just be level, a little more chill.
Yes, I welcome the chill. I am almost not looking forward to the craziness I think that's going to ensue this spring with the bidding.
Yep. Here we go.
Back to square one.
Here we go.
Here we go again. Well, all right. We'll watch this at the end of spring and see how it went. All right. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.